A husband and his pregnant wife set off for a weekend camping trip in Joshua Tree, sending one last photo before vanishing without a trace. In Joshua Tree, the wind doesn't whisper, it holds its breath. Miles of sun-bleached earth stretch endlessly, broken only by twisted yucca trees and rocks that look older than memory itself. It's the kind of silence that can make a man believe he's the last soul on earth. And for one hiker, maybe he was. 11 years after a young couple vanished without a trace, a lone backpacker, exhausted, sunburned, and nearly out of water, stumbled across something the desert was never meant to give back. A rusted pickup truck, half buried in sand, doors locked from the inside, and lying on the driver's seat, a leather-bound journal. Its pages stuck together with time and heat. Its ink faded almost to nothing. But on the very last page, a message scratched in frantic, trembling letters. If anyone finds this, tell our baby we tried. The hiker dropped it, backed away, because for the first time in the dead silence of Joshua Tree, he swore he heard crying. And that was just the beginning. He'd only planned to be out for 2 days. His name was Derek Hale, a seasoned hiker who'd logged over 50 solo desert treks without incident. But that day, something was wrong. His GPS glitched, his compass spun, and when the sun dipped below the horizon, the desert became unfamiliar. That's when he saw it. The truck, sunken deep into the earth as if the desert itself had been trying to swallow it whole. Derek's boots crunched against dry gravel as he approached. The air smelled of rust and dust. The windshield was cracked, peppered with bullet-like holes from years of sandstorms. He reached for the door. Locked. The passenger side? Same. And then he saw the window sticker. Ethan plus Lena forever. A faded decal with 2 stick figures holding hands, and one smaller figure between them. A child. Derek's chest tightened. He'd heard the stories. Everyone had. The Joshua Tree couple, as the media had called them, vanished 11 years ago. Search teams, helicopters, drones, nothing. It was as if the desert had eaten them alive. And yet, here was their truck. He circled around the back. No footprints, no tire marks, just stillness, until he saw it. Wedged under the front tire, half buried in sand, was a shoe, a woman's sneaker. Derek froze. Then he noticed something else, something that made his stomach drop. The driver's window was smeared, not with dirt, not with dust, but with the faint, streaked outline of a hand. From the inside, Derek broke the driver's window with a rock. The sound echoed across the desert like a gunshot. Inside, everything was untouched. 2 half-empty water bottles, a folded baby onesie, still in its packaging, pair of sunglasses, and then the journal. He picked it up with trembling hands. The leather was cracked. The first few pages stuck together, but he opened it. July 3rd. We made it. Ethan says the stars here look like they're close enough to touch. He's setting up the tent. I can't wait for our baby to see this one day. We're going to be the kind of parents who tell stories about the wild places. July 5th. We're running low on water. Ethan says it's fine. I trust him. But it's so hot. I keep thinking I hear things at night. Whispers. Maybe it's just the wind. The pages grew more frantic. July 7th. Ethan's sick, dizzy, won't eat. I begged him to let me go for help, but he won't let me leave. He says, the desert moves when you're not looking. I don't understand. God, please, someone find us. And the last entry, July 8th. Baby's coming. We can't move. We hear footsteps outside the tent. But when we look, nothing. If anyone finds this, tell our baby we tried. Derek slammed the journal shut. His heart pounded like war drums. And that's when he heard it. Behind him, a sound. Not the wind. Not an animal. Faint, high-pitched wail. Crying. But when Derek turned, nothing. Just the desert watching. Derek didn't run. He didn't scream. He just backed away from the truck, pulled out his satellite phone, and called 911. Joshua Tree Emergency Dispatch. What's your location? His voice shook. I found them. I think I found them. Who, sir? The couple. The pregnant woman. Ethan and Lena. They're out here. Static. Sir, that case was closed 11 years ago. No, listen to me. I have their truck. I have their journal. They didn't just disappear. There. The line cut. Derek stared at his phone. No signal. And then, from the corner of his eye, he saw it just for a second. A figure. Far in the distance. Standing perfectly still on a ridge. Watching him. When he blinked, it was gone. The next morning, search teams arrived at Derek's coordinates. They found the truck. They found the journal. But not Derek. The only trace of him was his footprints, leading toward the ridge, and stopping abruptly, as if he had simply vanished. Before the desert swallowed their names, there was a photo. It wasn't taken by a professional, just a blurry snapshot on Ethan's old phone. Lena, 7 months pregnant, standing in front of their tiny Los Angeles apartment, holding her belly and laughing at something Ethan said behind the camera. In that picture, nothing was wrong. No one could have guessed that in less than a week, that same laughter would be replaced with silence, and that photo would become the last memory anyone had of them alive. Ethan Ward was 32, paramedic, the kind of man who'd pull over to help a stranger on the side of the highway. He loved old Western movies and black coffee, and he loved Lena fiercely. Lena Cruz was 28, a teacher, quiet, but with this stubborn spark that could light up a room when she smiled. She'd been born in El Paso but had chased her dreams all the way to California, where she met Ethan on what was supposed to be the worst blind date of her life. Instead, it turned into forever. By the time she got pregnant, they didn't have much. Just a one-bedroom apartment, second-hand furniture, and a jar full of loose change they called the Adventure Fund. That fund was for Joshua Tree. Lena had been obsessed with the desert ever since college. It's where the world feels honest, she used to say. No city noise, no distractions. Just you, the stars, and the truth. Ethan didn't get it. But for her, he'd follow the sun into the sand. 2 weeks before they vanished, Ethan posted on his social media, "One last trip before we become parents. Joshua Tree. Just me, Lena, and our little stargazer, still kicking around in her belly. Can't wait to tell her about this one day." Their friends teased them. "Don't get lost out there." Lena just laughed. "We'll be fine. It's only a weekend." But buried beneath that laughter was something else. Lena's sister, Marisol, later told police that during their last phone call, Lena had said something strange. "I keep dreaming about the desert. I wake up feeling like it's calling me. Is that weird?" Marisol thought it was just nerves. She told her to sleep, to stop worrying. If only she had listened closer. July 3rd, 11:42 a.m., Ethan filled the truck with gas. Lena bought snacks from the station. Security cameras captured the two of them laughing, kissing at the pump. Ordinary, completely ordinary. Then they headed east. For hours, the road unspooled like a ribbon of heat and mirage. They sang along to old songs. Lena's hand rested on her belly. Ethan kept glancing at her like he still couldn't believe any of it was real. As the sun dipped low, the outline of Joshua Tree's twisted landscape rose up to meet them. It looked almost alive. Lena whispered, "It's even more beautiful than I imagined." Ethan smiled. But later, in his journal, he wrote something he didn't tell her. "Felt weird for a second when we passed through the park gates. Like the air got heavier. Not bad, just different." That night, under a blanket of stars, they camped at Hidden Valley. Ethan built a fire. Lena sat cross-legged in the sand, reading baby names out loud from a list she'd scribbled down. "Nova," she said. "Like the star," Ethan teased. "Like our adventure," she smiled. Around midnight, a desert wind swept through their camp. The fire hissed, and for a moment, Ethan swore he saw someone, a figure in the distance standing among the rocks. But when he blinked, gone. He didn't mention it to Lena. Instead, he pulled her close. The desert stretched around them like an ocean of silence. And for the first time, it felt like it was listening. The next morning, Ethan called his brother, Tyler. "Made it," he said. "We'll be back Sunday night." Tyler laughed. "Don't go turning into one of those weird missing hikers. All right?" Ethan smirked. Not funny. But hours later, when investigators would replay that call, they'd notice it. In the background, a faint sound, like someone whispering. On July 4th, Lena wrote in her journal, "I keep hearing things. Last night, I woke up thinking I heard a baby crying." Ethan says it's just the wind. Maybe it is. Maybe it's nothing. But sometimes it sounds like it's right next to the tent. That was the last entry written in calm, steady handwriting. After that, the words began to shake. At sunset, they moved deeper into the park. No cell signal, no cars, just two figures, a tent, and the growing weight of the desert pressing down on them. And then, they vanished. The next morning, search teams found only tire tracks, leading in, never leading out. July 6th, 8:17 p.m. Tyler Ward stared at his phone. No text, no call, nothing. Ethan and Lena were supposed to be home hours ago. At first, he thought maybe they stopped for food, or maybe Ethan had lost service. But by midnight, when Lena's sister Marisol also called, her voice shaking, Tyler knew something was wrong. They called the local sheriff's office. By dawn, park rangers were notified. Joshua Tree is big. Almost 800,000 acres of rock, sand, and sunburned silence. People get lost. But pregnant women and their husbands don't just vanish. By 6 a.m., the first team went out. Rangers found Ethan's truck near Hidden Valley. Doors locked. Keys inside. 2 camping chairs folded neatly in the back. Inside the cab was Lena's journal, open to that last shaky entry. "I heard it again. Not wind. Not this time. No footprints. No sign of a struggle. Just tire tracks leading in." Tyler stared at the truck and whispered, "They didn't just walk away from this." A ranger put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll find them." But his voice didn't sound convinced. Within 48 hours, the desert was crawling with people. Search and rescue teams, drones, K-9 units, dozens of volunteers fanning out through the rocky maze. Marisol arrived, clutching a photo of Lena to her chest like it was the only thing keeping her standing. She begged them not to stop, not to slow down, not to let the desert win. One hiker swore he'd seen a man and a pregnant woman near Barker Dam the night before they vanished. But when rangers checked, nothing. Another volunteer claimed they'd found a scrap of fabric snagged on a cactus. It wasn't theirs. Every lead ended the same way. Empty. By day 5, the heat was brutal. Triple digits. Searchers collapsed from dehydration. Dogs wore out their paws on the sharp rock. But they pressed on because sometimes they swore they could hear something. Faint. Almost like voices carried on the wind. One ranger later admitted in an interview, "I thought I heard a woman calling. I followed it for nearly an hour before I realized it wasn't getting closer. If anything, it was circling me." He never told Marisol. Day 7. A break. A hiker reported seeing a figure standing on a ridge at sunset. Tall, broad-shouldered. Search teams raced there, climbing over jagged rock until their hands bled. They found nothing, only a lone boot print in the sand, and it was facing the wrong way. News vans swarmed the park entrance. Pregnant woman and husband missing. Family begs for answers. Tyler went on live TV, begging Ethan to come home. Marisol stood beside him, silent tears streaking her face. The sheriff held a press conference. "Search efforts will continue until we have answers." But even then, he didn't say alive. On day 9, a drone captured something strange. A line of rocks, arranged in a near-perfect circle miles from any trail. Inside the circle, nothing. No footprints. No sign of Ethan or Lena. But one ranger said quietly, "That wasn't there last week." They never found who or what built it. By day 14, the official search scaled back. Rangers packed up. Volunteers went home. The headlines faded. Only Tyler and Marisol stayed behind, staring out at the sun-bleached horizon like it had stolen their family. Tyler whispered, "They're still out there." Marisol didn't answer, because deep down, she felt it too. On the 15th day, a ranger found something half-buried near the edge of a dry wash. A baby's pacifier. It was Lena's, and it was still warm. 2 months later, most people had moved on. The sheriff's office had filed the case under pending investigation. But the unspoken truth was clear. They weren't coming back. Except Tyler didn't accept that. He spent every weekend at Joshua Tree. His hands blistered from digging. His lips cracked from the heat. Marisol joined him sometimes. She didn't talk much anymore, just stared into the endless sand, scanning for anything. On one of those weekends, Tyler found it, a small pile of stones, arranged in a spiral, and in the center, a scrap of blue fabric. Lena's maternity dress. The internet lit up. Reddit threads, Facebook groups, YouTube deep dives. Some said Ethan and Lena had faked their disappearance to start a new life. Others believed they'd been kidnapped. One theory claimed Lena's journal entries hinted at something supernatural. The sound she heard wasn't just paranoia. Tyler read every post, every comment, until he came across one that made his blood run cold. Check the old mines. People go missing there. Locals don't talk about it. He didn't sleep that night. The next weekend, Tyler dragged Marisol out to one of the abandoned shafts. A jagged wound in the earth, its rusted warning sign barely legible. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "No," he admitted. They climbed down anyway, their flashlights cut through the dark, beams bouncing off ancient timbers. At the bottom, they found nothing, just silence, until Marisol spotted something scratched into the rock. Lena. The letters were shallow, frantic, and next to them, a single handprint. That night, Tyler dreamed of Lena's voice calling his name. When he woke, the wind outside his tent sounded almost the same. Marisol swore she heard it too. "It's not the wind," she whispered. They didn't sleep after that. On day 3 of their private search, Tyler found fresh footprints near the western ridge. 2 sets, one large, one small. They followed them for nearly half a mile before realizing the truth. They didn't lead anywhere. The tracks just stopped. Then a breakthrough. A hiker turned in a photo to the sheriff's office. A blurry figure taken at sunset, far off in the rocks. A woman, pregnant. It hit the news. Is Lena still alive? Tyler and Marisol nearly drove off the road racing out there. But when they arrived, the ridge was empty. The photo? The sheriff later admitted it was a trick of the light. By winter, the desert changed. Cold nights, long shadows. One evening, as Tyler packed his gear, Marisol didn't move. She was staring at a ridgeline. "Do you see it?" she whispered. Tyler followed her gaze. For just a moment, just long enough to doubt himself, he saw it too. A silhouette, watching them, and then it was gone. The next morning, Tyler found something wedged in a crevice of rock. Polaroid, weathered, faded. It showed Ethan holding Lena's hand. She was still pregnant. And in the corner, written in a trembling hand, "We are not alone." The timestamp? 2 weeks after they vanished. Tyler stared at the photo until his hands shook. Marisol whispered, "This doesn't make sense." Tyler looked out at the horizon. The same horizon that had swallowed his brother whole, and said, "Then we'll go where it stops making sense." And for the first time, he sounded afraid. It had been almost a year. Most volunteers were gone. The sheriff had long stopped answering Tyler's calls. Even Marisol, his last ally, was ready to quit. But then Tyler found it. Buried in an old forum thread, a retired park ranger had left a cryptic comment. "There's another shaft. Not on the maps. Not supposed to be there." Tyler didn't hesitate. The next weekend, they hiked out past the known trails, deeper than anyone had searched before. And there it was, a rusted steel hatch, half buried in sand. No markings, no record of its existence. The air inside was stale, heavy. Tyler lowered himself first, flashlight trembling in his grip. The tunnel stretched down, twisting like a wound in the earth. The walls bore scratch marks, too many to count. Marisol's voice cracked behind him. "Tyler, look! On the wall. Help US scratched in frantic, uneven lines. And beneath it, 2 names. Ethan and Lena." Tyler's breath hitched. They hadn't been wrong. They had been here. Half an hour deeper, they stumbled into a chamber. Inside were remnants. Torn fabric, Lena's maternity dress sleeve, a cracked thermos with Ethan's initials, and bones. Not human. Animal. Scattered. Chewed clean. Tyler's flashlight shook. Whatever happened here, it wasn't just survival. In the corner of the chamber, half buried in sand, Marisol found a waterproof bag. Inside, an old handheld camcorder. Tyler's hands trembled as he pressed play. The footage was grainy, but unmistakable. "Ethan." Dirt-streaked, eyes hollow. He whispered into the lens. "We're not alone down here. It won't let us leave. If someone finds this, tell my brother I tried." And then a sound. Low, guttural. Something moved behind him. The camera cut out. Tyler and Marisol hauled the camcorder back to town. They showed it to the sheriff. He laughed, called it fake. But a local prospector, an old man who'd mined the area decades ago, pulled them aside. "I know that tunnel," he said. "It's not on any map because it shouldn't exist. Some folks say it connects to the old military test sites. Others say it's older than that." When Tyler asked what older meant, the man just looked away. 2 weeks later, while cross-referencing old satellite images, Marisol spotted it. An irregular depression in the desert floor, just a few hundred yards from the hatch. It wasn't natural. They hiked back out, dug through the sand, and unearthed something metallic. A hatch, smaller, older, and welded shut from the outside. Tyler stared at it, heart pounding. Who locks something from the outside? They came back at night. Crowbars, lanterns, desperation. Took 3 hours to pry it open. The smell hit them first, then the sound. A faint, rhythmic knocking like something waiting. Marisol's voice cracked. "Tyler, what if?" But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. When the door finally gave way, the tunnel yawned open like a throat. And somewhere deep inside, a cry. A human cry. Tyler turned to Marisol. "Did you hear that?" Her face was pale. It sounded like her. Tyler tightened his grip on the flashlight. "Then we go in." And without another word, he stepped into the dark. The tunnels felt alive. The further Tyler and Marisol went, the louder it became. The knocking. Rhythmic. Almost purposeful. "Maybe it's the wind," Marisol whispered. Tyler shook his head. "No, it's calling." They followed it. Deeper. Past collapsed walls and twisted metal beams. Past bones, animal and otherwise. And then, they saw it. A door. Old steel. Rivets rusted and bleeding into the rock. A warning carved into the surface. "Leave them." Tyler's breath trembled. This is it. With one final push, the door gave way. The room beyond was massive. On the ground, camping gear. Ethan's watch. Lena's wedding ring. And in the center, 2 skeletons huddled together. One hand still clutched a piece of fabric. A faded maternity dress. Marisol's voice broke. "Oh, God!" But then Tyler noticed something else. Scratch marks. On the walls. Dozens. Hundreds. And words scrawled in blood and ash. "It's still here." They should have turned back. But Tyler's flashlight caught something in the corner. Another skeleton. This one wasn't huddled. It was twisted, spine arched, mouth open in a silent scream. Around it, chains. And etched into the floor. "Don't unlock it." Marisol backed away. "Tyler, what is this?" He couldn't answer. Because for the first time, he wasn't sure Ethan and Lena had been alone down here. Back at camp, Tyler replayed the old camcorder. He noticed something he hadn't before. In the last frame, just before it cut to static. A shadow. Not human. Long arms. Bent wrong. And in the reflection of Ethan's terrified eyes, it moved. Tyler and Marisol dug deeper into the archives. Hidden in a forgotten corner of the county records office, they found it, a classified file. Joshua Tree National Park, restricted sector. Inside were incident reports dating back to the 1950s. Campers missing. Rangers never found. One note scrawled in the margin read, "Seal it. Do not disturb." But it had been disturbed. By Ethan and Lena. Tyler couldn't sleep. He loaded the camcorder one more time, frame by frame. Then he saw it. In the static, barely visible, a shape formed letters. A single phrase, "It's not done." Tyler's blood ran cold. Because if the desert hadn't taken Ethan and Lena quickly, it had taken its time. Marisol wanted to stop. Tyler couldn't. And then he found it, a voicemail, dated 11 years ago, from Ethan. The message was cracked, distorted. But his words were clear enough. "We found a tunnel. We thought it was shelter. But it's a trap. We're not alone down here. If anyone hears this, don't come looking." Then, faintly, a second voice. Lena's. "Tyler, if you love us, stay away." And then, screaming. The line cut. Tyler sat in silence. The desert wasn't just a grave. It was a prison. And whatever was trapped down there, it had waited long enough. He looked at Marisol, pale and trembling. "We're not leaving," he said. And for the first time, she didn't argue. The sun hadn't yet risen when Tyler packed his gear. Marisol stood by the jeep, shaking her head. "We shouldn't go back," she whispered. Tyler tightened his flashlight strap. "We don't have a choice." The voicemail, the skeletons, the warnings scratched into stone. They weren't just evidence, they were a map. And maps lead somewhere. They drove in silence. By the time they reached the entrance of the collapsed tunnel, the desert was still. A vast, open graveyard. Marisol glanced at Tyler. "If we find them, what then?" Tyler didn't answer. Because deep down, he wasn't sure what they'd find. The tunnels felt different this time. Colder. The air carried a low hum, almost like breath. As they pushed deeper, their lights hit something new. An opening they hadn't seen before. Inside was a chamber of carvings. Ancient. Symbols spiraling across the walls. And in the center, a crude altar. Ethan and Lena's names, scratched into the rock. Fresh. Marisol's hand trembled. They were here. Recently? Tyler's chest tightened. "No, this is old. Someone, or something, is rewriting it." The first sound was a scrape. Then another. Tyler's flashlight beam cut across the cavern. Movement, not quite human. Figures shifting in the dark. Their limbs bending where they shouldn't. Marisol clutched Tyler's arm. "We have to go." But then one of the shadows tilted its head, and Tyler swore it whispered his name. They stumbled into the final room. It wasn't natural. It wasn't even human-made. The walls were lined with claw marks. Chains dangled from the ceiling. And on the far wall, more words etched into stone, deep enough to bleed dust. They never left. Tyler's flashlight quivered, because sitting against the wall was Ethan's backpack. Inside, a journal. The last entry read, "If you're reading this, it's too late. It wants you to know. It wants you to see." A sound, wet, dragging, slithered through the chamber. The walls seemed to breathe. Marisol froze. "Tyler!" From the shadows, it emerged. Not fully seen, just glimpses. A shape that didn't belong to any natural thing. Limbs stretching far too long. Eyes where eyes shouldn't be. It didn't lunge. It didn't roar. It only watched. Tyler stepped forward, his breath shaking. "Ethan, Lena, did it?" And then, behind him, a whisper. "Ty!" He spun. Two figures stood in the darkness. Ethan and Lena, or what was left of them. Lena's face was pale, her voice thin like wind. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "It doesn't let us go." Tyler's chest collapsed in on itself. "We can get you out. We can." "No." Ethan's voice cracked. "You leave, or you stay. And it keeps you too." The creature moved closer. Tyler's flashlight sputtered. And then, in the darkness, a decision formed. Marisol grabbed Tyler's arm. "We're leaving. Now." He didn't fight her, because Ethan's eyes, empty, hollow, were begging him to run. They bolted, through tunnels that felt narrower, walls pressing closer. Behind them, the thing followed. Not fast, not rushing, just certain. They didn't stop until sunlight broke through the jagged rocks, until the desert swallowed the entrance behind them. And then silence. Back in town, Tyler turned over the evidence to the authorities. The rings, the journal, the footage. They launched an investigation. They sent teams down into the tunnels and came back with nothing. No bones, no carvings, no door. It was as if the desert had swallowed it all again. Weeks later, Tyler received a package. No return address. Inside, Ethan's camcorder. A new recording. Ethan's voice, clearer than before. "It doesn't bury us. Keeps us. Tell them to stop digging." Tyler stared at the screen long after it went black. And then, the knocking began. From inside the walls. Marisol left town. Tyler didn't. He sits in his small desert cabin now, watching the horizon every night, waiting for the sound. Sometimes he swears he sees two figures just past the ridge. Ethan, Lena, and something else, standing behind them. He's still listening, and he's not the only one. Asterisk, in the desert, time doesn't move forward. It circles back. Ethan and Lena were never supposed to be found. And maybe they never were. The rangers closed the tunnels. The officials stopped digging. But the desert remembers. And if you listen closely on those cold, windless nights, you'll hear it too. A whisper in the sand. A voice calling out from a place that should not exist. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe some secrets don't want to be solved. Because when the sun goes down in Joshua Tree, something else wakes up. Asterisk. Asterisk. So tell me, if you were Tyler, would you have gone back into those tunnels? Or would you have left the desert to keep its dead? Asterisk.